Da 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 da. It's the Grand Arbiter, Madam Askew, and special guest Gail Carriger. Welcome, one and all, to the Madam Askew Grand Arbiter Tea Time Extravaganza. Wow! Wow! That's a crowd. Wow! I don't know why they sound like Waluigi, but they go wow! Oh no! Madam Askew is gone. Well, she will be back, I promise. It's just us right now. Everything is fine. I don't know where Madam went, but everything is chill. She will be back in a moment. Welcome, everyone. It is I, the Grand Arbiter, and of course, our special guest, Gail Carriger. Hi, Gail. You're muted. You're muted right now.
I'm muted. No, I'm not muted. Hi, everybody. Hi, Grand Arbiter. Sorry about that. I was eating dinner like just before we started. Well, I suppose I was having my tea, and in the current British sense of the word. Yes. So I muted myself so there was no scrunching on audio to preserve everybody's
ears.
You're
so brave and strong. It is super good to see you. You've been hard at work, I hear. Just working, traveling the world traveler, hard worker, Gail Carriger.
You know how it is.
I mean,
it's fancy free.
It's really impressive how much you can fit into a year. You can fit so much into even 6 months. It's been so not
ready. Please remove.
Okay. Everything is fine. It was just like a little bit of a crisis. I'm not sure what happened. I think she's doing it from her phone now. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but Gail, you have been working on you've had some releases this last year. You have your new shifter book that came out.
Yes, that came out at the very end of last year. That was
end of last year.
Yes. So and then I had the Dear Lord Akaldama special this year, but I haven't had any new books this year. I have very good excuses because I have not been writing. I mean, I've started up again, but there was a window when you aren't writing, and in the book industry, that basically means that the window of time after when you aren't writing is when you don't have the book come out that you didn't write. As it works.
That's of course the way it works. The special edition does look great. I definitely bought Madam Askew one.
There it is.
It's so beautiful. It's a really incredible edition. I am really impressed with how these special editions always look really impressive and are just a real exciting experience whenever they come out. So we're really excited to get this one.
Yay! Yeah, I'm always charmed when Subterranean does a special edition. Actually, I have a thing in my inbox which I have not read, which I probably should. From Subterranean saying that the lettered edition finally seems to be on the move, which is the super duper fancy version of the book. Which there's only 30 of them made or whatever, and they come in fancy trays and things. So finally, if anybody out there is waiting for their fancy pants version, the fancy pants version is finally.
Is that the one that I got? Did I get the fancy pants version?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know. They look like this. They have these special boxes that they come in. Anyway, and they're leather.
Really beautiful.
They're
I believe
leather.
it is the very special fancy pants version that we picked up.
Oh,
I batted my eyes at you, and
you did make the face. I'm glad that you're doing okay. Did your little friend fail the internet?
There was a failure of technology, and I am trying something different, and we're going to keep our fingers crossed that it works. But also, it's like all of the settings are mucked about, so it was a little bit haphazard. But I'm here with you, and that's what matters. And I'm far away, but I'm here. So
I mean, you're not that far away. We'll zoom you in later. It'll be all good.
Yes.
So Gail, it's been too long. I mean, we saw you at Worldcon.
True. That was not that long ago.
But it does feel like an age whenever we don't get to see you for an extended period. So we are just so excited to see you here. What are some things that you have been we're going to say, we always hear about what special things are going on with Madame Askew, the things that are inspiring us. We just got our big giant shipment of fabric. I've gotten as some have called it, a metric shite ton of fabric.
Yes, always exciting.
Incredible amount of fabric. So what is something exciting going on in your life that you're really excited about?
Oh gosh, what's something exciting? I'm watching an incredibly stupid show right now, which is taking over my brain in a very delightful way. So that's exciting.
Is it a new Korean drama?
It is not Korean. It is Chinese, which is part of the shock from this show. So because it should not exist, but China is making it.
This is not the race car driver one, is it?
It's tangential to that, actually. This is all a very long story for anybody who does not know this, but I'm a huge fan of Asian dramas in general, specifically queer ones. And there's been kerfuffling with China because queer and China, at least so far as the CCP are concerned, do not coexist. So, do you want me to tell this story? It's a little bit of a story. Shall I tell the story?
Yes.
Tell the story. We are ready for a story.
All right. This story begins back in 2016. So, a long time ago now, at least in the days of the internet, most of the Asian countries were producing gay dramas, mostly gay. Some of them were producing lesbian dramas, but it's mostly gay. And many people were writing what we would have called slash fic. And became male and gay romances, and mostly in their versions of AO3 over there, whatever form they would take. What was also happening is there were a lot of gay Chinese vloggers, fashion vloggers, and the like on the YouTubes, of whom I was a big fan. And because I'm always interested in what other countries are doing, specifically in the realm of like street fashion and stuff. And then in 2016, one of the dramas of the day out of China called Addicted was abruptly canceled. And this, as it turned out, heralded many things, including a bunch of the YouTube and then YouTube in general being shut down from China, and some of them ending up in prison. And then some noted names in Danmai, which was actually published gay fiction, often set in sort of cultivation or progression mythologies, which involve martial arts, etc., being thrown into jail. Again, mostly women. And so this all happened in 2016, 2017, and then China stopped producing all queer, sort of, except they still produced it, but they censored all of the kissing and anything else. So you got these like romances where it's very clear that there's a romantic relationship going on for 52 episodes or what have you between the two male leads, but no one's talking about it. And the actors, in fact, discuss how they're going to convey this without actually getting canceled and their careers cut short. Wild times, I'm telling you. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is just like happily producing a bazillion dramas where boys are kissing, and Thailand is like, what can we do for you? We will give you anything you want in this arena. And then
thank you, Thailand.
Yes, big fan. Anyway, and then recently, wildly, it started happening again. First of all, what started happening again is China cracked down on the fanfic authors in particular within the last couple of years, and threw a bunch of young women writing gay fanfic into prison because why not? Which is all things wild and crazy. So yeah, treasure your AO3, everybody out there. And meanwhile, they then turned around and produced two absolutely stellar gay romances where, yes, there is quite a bit of kissing. All the things are happening, in fact. The first one, which was called Revenge Love, was a remake of a very popular one from like 2015 or thereabouts. And it caused a stir, and it was great. And somehow they managed to figure out how to film this and produce it and shell it out into the universe via, get this one, everybody who's into politics, Singapore. And guess who's hosting it on their platform? Why, that would be Taiwan. So we don't oh, what is going on? And then, even more recently, they started producing this one, which has me in a chokehold. Revenge Love was good, but ABO Desire, alias just Desire, is actual MPreg, actual CEO, actual main, like, morality chain, psychopathic lead character. It's wild. A man has gotten pregnant on screen out of China. And yeah, my corner of the internet has lost its mind, and I'm enjoying everything. I'm enjoying the absolute bizarreness of it. I am enjoying the stellar optics. I mean, the prettiest thing you've ever seen in your life. I'm enjoying a psychopathic main character. Why not? I'm here for the blood, being sexy. I don't know. What's going on, you guys.
I mean, you're notoriously in love with psychopathic romance.
I do
You
love,
really a crazy, violent guy with an external.
I love a morality chain. Like, I do not write these things. I don't think my audience would like them, but boy, do I enjoy reading them. There's something about, like, a character who's like, I'm just gonna kill everybody, but you're the one I don't want to kill, but I want to kill everybody else. And I don't know, there's something deep in my soul that's very attracted to that concept.
And I like you so much, I will stop killing some people at your event.
But just you have to tell me. You have to tell me.
You have to renew it, like, annually.
Yeah.
You have
to. Yeah.
And you can't just say it once. You have to say it every time.
This crazy drama out of Thailand is, like, on point with that. Like, their psychopath is literally like his brother tears a picture of his beloved, who he's stalking, mind you, in half. And he basically turns around and is like, which hand would you prefer to keep? And then he tears his brother's hand off. That's just wildly romantic.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. Oh, I was not, like, sociopath, psychopath, all the paths. And then his love interest is like this, like, absolute sugar, like, cinnamon roll darling that everybody loves, and will just, with one word, just shut him down. Just be like, no, we don't tear hands today. The psychopath is like, okay, if you say so, baby. Pout. It's wild. There's fetishization going on. I don't know. I don't understand it. And it's coming. There's some of the worst fashion I've ever seen in my life. I can't. And then some of the best. So wild times. So that's the thing I'm loving right now.
That seems like a good thing to love. Askew, would you like to just tell everyone about our Patreon's Corner topic for today?
Oh, no, I do not want to tell them. You need to tell them, because I am hanging on by a thread being here. And so I'm afraid if I move from where I'm at to go and fetch that information, my house of cards will crash around.
It will fall down.
We will have a talk, because this is a new development in challenges.
Yes.
As a reminder, we had a tie today of 2 choices, and Gail Carriger has delightfully chosen for us, from archaeology to novels, telling stories through objects.
So excited.
Well, it's me. It's what I do. So, an easy topic for me to discuss,
I mean, look, you have this specialty. You come out of archaeology. Anyone who knows you have strong opinions on objects, and anyone who reads your books know that you have a fondness and a penchant for the ephemera of, culture, all of the objects that exist that make people have culture. And so
I'm very interested. Yes, I'm very interested in the hidden messages that the things we have around us or put onto us send out into the world. All of the the things that what you choose to wear and what you choose to have and how you decorate, they all say things about you as a person to all of the other people we encounter as we move through the world, whether those people are invited into our homes or whether we're out and about town. So I am strategic in how I do all of that kind of presentation on a personal level. I'm very judgy about other people's choices. And yes, I am, because it's so interesting to me and so important. But also, it's very curious in terms of the way different cultures revolve around objects. And then, of course, my entire past was looking at the objects that have survived and figuring out what they say or tell us about the cultures that we do not have access to most other ways.
This is a comment from Facebook.
Oh.
I wonder what archaeologists in the Parasolverse would think of these hats when they discover them.
I mean, great observation.
Yes, it's true. One wonders.
Well, and with so many hats, it's more likely that some of them might survive.
Absolutely. Also, hers are the kind of hats that like not many other people would perhaps want to wear, and therefore they are more likely to survive because they won't be utilized as frequently.
One of my favorite things about objects like this that get preserved and are later studied through archaeology or like fashion history or what have you is the ways in which this singular object can sort of warp some of the views. People can give it greater weight than it really deserves, especially like if you don't have this understanding that often what gets preserved are the things that don't get used that often. And so then it seems like, well, everyone was wearing ivy hats, but they absolutely were not all wearing ivy hats.
That's yes. And it's one of my favorite examples of this is the prevalent and erroneous opinion that people were considerably smaller in the Victorian era, for example.
Yes.
And that, I mean, to a certain extent, nutrition has improved, and we have, as a species, gotten slightly larger in terms of just bone structure, as things like rickets have been mostly eliminated, etc. And we understand about nutrition a little bit more. But something like that close, something as near to us as in the 1940s or the 20s or the Victorian era even, people were not considerably smaller than us. And that is the reason we have that opinion, is because the clothing that survives tends to be smaller. And that's because it was often reused or cut down. So if you have something that is larger, you can always keep tailoring it down in order to pass it around or eventually like use it on a child or what have you. So that's one of the reasons. Yeah.
So I have a question for you as an author with your wonderful background. I mean, academically, you've got all the chops for like understanding objects in the historical record as an archaeologist. But as an author, you get to play with this in your stories. And so I'm curious, what is an object you love to like pepper through to like help elucidate a character for people? What do you have a particular favorite, or is there something you go to all the time where you're like, this is a key detail, what they do with this kind of object?
That's interesting. So, I mean, there's a couple of ways to sort of answer that question. One of the things I do is, and that I love to do a lot with objects specifically, is imagine a different reason for their existence. So, like, for example, the way collars are and cravats are in the Victorian era in my world is because you want to protect your neck from vampire bites. So you have to wear high starch collars and tight cravats. And so the lack of such can be considered an invitation, but not in a like, oh, she's or he is a little loosey-goosey invitation, but in a like an invitation that you might be considering yourself a meal, that kind of thing. So that's one thing that's always in my brain, is specifically objects that I know are sort of everyday use or in common use, but are not no longer. So they're like quintessentially Victorian things. I'm very interested in ways and means that I could make them significant to the way I've rebuilt the world in my own mythology and brain. But to answer your actual question, I would say the thing that becomes key and becomes interesting to me as what it says about the character, and I think this is primarily because of the kinds of characters I work with, is often weaponry. So I don't like to default to actual weapons, like guns or what have you, partly because I don't like to glorify guns ever when I write, so I very rarely put guns in except into the hands of negative characters or bad guys. And that's just a personal preference. But I like the idea of things that aren't necessarily weapons becoming weapons or becoming a favored weapon, hence the sort of bladed fan for Sophronia, for example.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
the umbrella
Yeah.
being the, like, basically the
Or the
comfort
umbrella.
object.
Yeah. And specifically, I like to explore things as weapons because I have mostly female main characters that are associated with women and therefore sort of weakness or frivolity, and how that can then become sort of subversive and insidious as a defensive capacity. And I, a part like that that has not uncommon, like the old hat pin adage, but yeah.
I do
So
see something in your writing that I think is like actually very fascinating, is you do love a character devoted to an object. You have a real consistency with characters who have like
signature objects. Yeah.
Signature objects, but also like comfort objects, that they seek comfort in that object. So
Yes.
like even with Soulness, the umbrella becomes this like the loss of the umbrella is a big important moment for that character, but also like the fact that she like pets it when she's feeling stressed out or when she's feeling distressed.
And also who provides her with the umbrella is very significant, or the parasol in that there's the original parasol and then there's the new parasol, and the new parasol is new in many and different ways, but it also is provided by sort of a new friend, and also a friend who will be an enduring friend who gadgetizes it up a little bit more than the previous the kind of thing, right? That
each one is about like it's about her like growing that relationship and connecting to that person, and
precisely
really showing what their relationship is through their relationship to this object, which I find really fascinating. When I'm thinking about objects, I can't stop thinking about ladles. And
yes.
Part of it is because in Tempered Star Songs, the lead character's primary like comfort object is a ladle. But the ladle is also somewhat like reflective of who they are, as they are a person who serves.
Yeah.
And so it's this very like, you're very into the metaphorical object.
And I had so much fun with the ladle, like becoming the icon of that character as an idol as well, like as a god, like so the goal
like he had it branded,
have little
like
symbol, like he has like branded labels, but also you can imagine like the super fans would be wearing little ladles, like decorative ladles. It's just I don't know. I love a ladle. That is a personal thing. I love the shape of them. I think a satisfying ladle is extremely important sort of shape. I don't know. And there is this sort of, it's definitely metaphorical. They're often metaphorical. I mean, Alexia's like the parasol protectorate, the idea of the parasol or the umbrella that protects you from things, right? Like her object is an object of defense rather than necessarily offense. And that's also her supernatural ability, is also one of defense. She nullifies. She doesn't like throw fireballs or anything like that, right? So that and then Sophronia's the bladed fan is an instrument of code, right? The fan and the language of fans is as complicated as the language of flowers, but the fan is also something you hide behind. You hide parts of your face behind it. So it ties into her personality, but also her future in like career, essentially. It was always so the objects are also, and you're right, Fex and the soup ladle is this associated with warming and serving and comfort and providing, and that is the kind of character he is, as a protector provider sort of character. Even though he's not like loquacious or he's not a therapist or anything like that, he thinks of himself as sort of defensive and solitary. But
I mean, he's soup as a person.
Yeah, he is.
We have a few questions. Rachel asks, what would you use if you, what was a weapon as not a weapon in the Parasolverse, personally?
Ooh, that's a telling question, I have to say. Probably something like a scarf or a belt or uh, lorgnette, like a very long necklace kind of thing.
Ooh.
I think that is where my profile lies, I guess, with Agatha.
Yes.
With Agatha, I love
With Agatha.
She's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
great character. Yeah. No, Grand Arbiter, what would you use as a weapon that's not a weapon?
I think it would have to be something like a boot blade or something like that, because I'm so like so much of like I'm always I think that like there's something about a secretive blade that's very like attractive, of course, but also I'm a person who talks with my hands a lot, and I don't like to have a bunch of stuff on me, and I want to look open and inviting, but I do want to be able to kick you and really get the damage in if I need to.
Wow. Yeah, there you go.
Madam Askew, what about you?
Oh my gosh. Well, to be honest, I absolutely use a hat pin. In real life, I use a hat pin, which is a bit of that's a little bit of a cop out to rely on that. But I do. My grandmama.
I feel like it would
gave me
be like
hat
a
pin.
gadgety hat, though.
I'm sorry, what?
I believe it would be like a gadgety hat, like a
yeah, a gadgety hat, or gosh, I mean, look, I'm never without a purse, and I know that's a little bit on the nose, but I would absolutely put a brick in my reticule so that I could bludgeon people very charmingly with my reticule if I needed to.
Well, you could always use a cane sword if you really needed to.
Oh, no,
I mean,
I could use a cane sword. Yeah.
The Grand Arbiter brings a couple of more things to mind, which I do find very, very appealing. One of which is a poison ring. I've always loved the idea of deadly. I mean, we're back in deadly jewelry, right? I think deadly jewelry is obviously where I go. I like, so look. I travel all the time, and I love utilitarian jewelry when I travel. Like, I love a bracelet that can also be a hook for your purse on the table edge. I love a necklace that can also chain my luggage together so I can have a hand free.
Yes.
I mean, so obviously I would like a piece of jewelry that kills people. But as the Grand Arbiter has reminded me of the little knives that women supposedly once wore down their cleavages, and I am blessed. I could make use of that as storage capacity, and that is a very appealing weapon, I've got to say.
Yeah. Yes. Honestly, that's so solid. And yes, sword cane, a walking cane. Look, Bartitsu and all of this nonsense with canes. I mean,
there's
about
something so appealing about a multi-use object, and I guess I'm just object obsessed. I like an object that can do lots of things, and that includes
you want a multi-use object. I do have a vision of Madame Askew with a taser cane.
Yeah,
because then you don't have to be physically swinging it about. You just like poke them.
I just be like, yes, absolutely, fantastic. I'll just taser them with my cane. So we have another question about sundowner guns. How do the sundowner guns fit into the Parasolverse? That's for those who haven't read. And why haven't you read the books? If you haven't, you're missing out on something wonderful. So get on it. Start with Solus. But this is an important specialty weapon in the books.
I needed to equalize the playing field somehow as the answer. But that is a plot device. I wanted a weapon that conferred status. For those who don't know, a sundowner is a specific kind of person role in society, and they are usually one person in all of the UK who can enact the Queen's justice on the supernatural set, the sundowner. And the Sundowner has historically been a preternatural, who is somebody who can actually kill supernatural creatures through their own inborn ability. And in some cases, the Sundowner has been another supernatural, so a vampire or a werewolf in the case of the UK. And that person carries a gun that is specifically designed to kill both vampires and werewolves with a kind of bullet that can do so. And yeah, it's a leveling of the playing field that is necessary.
But it's also an object that, like, it sees some use in the books, but the reoccurring theme of them is that they're really just, they're more about what they confer than their usage, which is really
it's pretty rare for it to be used, and I think you see it a couple of times when a vampire has gone insane, and possibly when a werewolf has gone insane, although I don't know that I think I did depict that once. So only when the supernatural creatures have gone cuckoo and like need to be eliminated for the good of society. And even then, in a couple of instances, at least historically, the supernatural set itself has dealt with the problem, so to speak, rather than call in the Sundowner. Sundowner is meant to be a sort of last resort, I would say.
Yeah. And I did think about it when I was reading your books originally, about the sort of lack of propulsive weapons in the books, but I definitely like that feature a lot. I mean, they have a cozy quality because of that, but also it's subversive, Gail, and I love that. You know how I'm very fond of any sort of subversive nature to a story, and I like that about you very much, that you sort of work that into your beautiful stories.
What's brilliant about it is also it says something about the world if guns are not present in a large population, because how useful is a gun if you have vampires and werewolves around? Like, realistically, it makes sense if your greatest threat to your life is not another person but a supernatural creature, then guns do very little, is what my understanding. Guns they're just annoying.
Guns are mostly a pain. They're just the bullet eventually just comes out and you're just like, well, that was annoying.
Ruined my jacket.
Yes, exactly. And part of this is to do with the fact that British society to this day is not a particularly gun-focused society for various cultural reasons, but also because in the lore of the Parasolvers and in the reality of the day, most weaponry and guns was required first for the Napoleonic Wars and then for the expansion of the empire. And so, projectile weapons of that sort in my universe and in reality were mostly being used on other humans. So under a colonialist and expansionist nationalistic agenda. So the gun says a lot of things about British society and its sexualization, and about a lot of the worst parts of the British Empire. And so that's another reason for me to be like, the spy characters get trained in gun use. And probably had to, and will have, especially Agatha, probably would have used guns at some point. And I did go to a range to learn how it worked when I was writing those books, because I wanted to make sure I at least got that bit right. But I don't like it. I don't like, personally, emotionally, I don't like the feel of a gun in my hand. I don't like the weight of it. I don't like the finality of what it can do. It's a weird thing to say,
it's
because
an existential dead end of an object.
It is. It's to me, emotionally, it's not a pleasant object. And like I said, it's odd for me to say this because I was captain of the archery team in college, but I don't know. There's something about archery that I liked, where guns I did not.
There's something, if we're talking about objects, there's the force that's generated to use an arrow requires your own body. You must commit to this decision. A gun does not require that level of commitment.
Although it does, make you sore and stuff like that.
I mean, it's not easy, but it's one of those things where it's like the choice to use an arrow to take life of any kind requires an equal and opposite amount of effort on your end. which is
Well, unless
not
you
the
can
case for
or something.
I mean, yes,
But also
yes.
like, but this is sort of tying to the idea that there's an emotionalism and a symbolism and all of these other things packaged up with objects,
Yes.
not dissimilar from words and languages, in
Yes.
that like we are symbolic creatures, and so we see a thing, and we have a lot of emotional baggage and connection with this thing that doesn't necessarily tie to its structure on its
Yeah.
most basic level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this was a perfect example of how a singular object can elucidate so much about the world and the character, and how it's used can really give you so much insight. I absolutely know that some authors who are not my cup of tea will scatter objects sort of willy-nilly through a scene that have really nothing to do with the character or the story. They're just like obsessively detailing objects. And this is not to say that if you like those authors, there's something wrong with you. It's just not my personal taste. But one thing I love is a very thoughtful use of objects and description. You do this with clothing as well. The clothing is an object, and your use of fashion is always incredibly telling about your characters. Do you have a lot of fun with the fashion portion of
Oh
things?
yeah, absolutely. So much fun. So much fun. To a like really high end degree. And by that I mean what I'm currently writing is a large part set in a part of the world where the level of society in which my characters are inhabiting, and they're all shifters, so they also don't have a very close relationship with clothing. Basically what they wear is a loincloth or a sarong tied in different ways, right? It's a length of cloth that they tie around themselves when they feel like they have to go and interface with the humans who care about such things. And that is also really fun. And you've just reminded me that there's also objects that one of them is obsessed with that are kind of like the only object within the room that are also, to the Grand Arbiter's point, very symbolic of that character. And I'm like,
Yes.
I think I do it accidentally often now. It's such
like,
a lexicon.
I picked this topic with this like Gail is either very aware or is very unaware of her own
I think it's
behavior.
both at this juncture, because I just realized that this character, who is like the sweetest, loving, like adopted dad of everybody, he's obsessed with his silk cushions that are the only decoration that's in their cave, but he's obsessed with them. And he's always like getting mad when one of the other ones like nearly gets them messy or something, like comes in shifted form and is like dirty and like gets near the cushions. And he's like, no. And I was like, this also says a lot about this. But I mean, in my defense, they are some of the only decorative objects that make sense under the context of these characters. So sometimes these objects are by necessity. But all of which is to say, to answer Madame Askew's initial question, that even if the clothing is very simple, it's still something that I think a lot about. And often because I'm writing with shifters. So clothing's going to come into it. It's going to get torn. We're going to have to think about like whether they're naked and how they're not naked and all that. So there's a messiness to clothing, even as it is clearly something that I love very much. And so, it also says a lot about the characters, and whether they care or not says a lot about like Lord Macon's distaste for fashion contrasted to say Lyle and Biffy's adoration for it. It tells you a lot about both of their characters and personalities,
and about how they like to engage with the culture as a whole. There's like so many things that, like,
and how they see themselves as fitting in or not, or trying to fit in or not. With society, and other people, and in the case of the werewolves, with humanity and what
No, I love your use of fashion so much, and it's not just because I make clothes, but I just always found it to be very informative about the characters, and it was never This is a compliment, but it's a little bit backhanded to other people who are not here. I never felt like when I was reading your text that you were just copying, pasting fashion description every 2 pages to fill word count.
No. Yeah, I only you think of me as somebody who's very sort of juicy about clothing, but I actually rarely describe it unless it's important for you to know that the character is wearing that kind of thing. Or I mean, I was recently rereading Agatha's book Ambassador for reasons. This is what happens when you write with lots of characters in different parts of the world at the same time. And so I had to make sure I wasn't messing up. Agatha's book is one of those books that covers a long period of time, and the one I'm currently writing covers a long period of time. So I have to make sure streams are not getting crossed.
Yeah.
And there's a line in it, which I forgot I wrote because I do that all the time, where Agatha talks about the fact that because of her nomenclature and because of the way she fades in and out of the background in social gatherings a lot, that she actually has the largest wardrobe of possibly anyone in London. And it's just because she needs a dress to go with everybody's wallpaper. So she's always has these different dresses, like, so that she can fade into the background. And so she basically has sort of I imagine her as having this sort of rainbow of dresses that are all quite ugly and dowdy, but it's important so that she knows which one to dress for what environment. And it's a very specific way for me to make a commentary on sort of the requirements of fashion when you're going out to a gathering, formal, semi-formal, or whatever. Agatha's requirements dictated that she actually has this sort of vast wardrobe, and it's just sort of amusing to me. So yes, definitely I pay a ton of attention to fashion. I always say that one of the reasons I set the Paris Protectorate in particular in the 1870s is because it's one of my favorite periods of fashion history. I just think there's some of the most bizarre and creative, wildly restrictive and insane clothing comes in the 1870s and 1880s. Wild
it's true,
clothing.
It's true. And also, Lady June Squirrel, you are right. William Morris wallpaper would be okay, but no, you are so right about the fashion in the 1870s and the 1880s. Anytime someone who is like sort of got a more myopic view of the world and is just like looking only at European fashion, and then like something from another part of the world comes in and they're like, oh, how could they possibly wear that wild thing? And I'm like, have you looked at a bustle? That is like the weirdest piece of fashion.
The lobster bustle in particular is the lobster tail. It is who, like, why? And then like the cage crinolines on the slave crinolines. Somebody was like, not enough to have skirt
it's
crinolines.
So wild.
We need
it's
slave
so
crinolines.
Wild. Absolutely.
Like, oh, yeah.
No,
fantastic.
I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with this like very wild architecture that goes under clothing. I make it, so
Foundation
it's good that I'm
garments.
into it.
Oh
but
my
it
God.
is it's so weird, and so it's given me like a new appreciation that like whatever the fashion is in a different place, it has probably come about through very wild, sort of mechanisms. You cannot assume a rational pathway forward for all pieces of fashion. That would be a mistake.
I mean, I was watching, we're on to K-dramas all of a sudden. I was watching a historical K-drama recently with the Hanbok, and their silhouette aesthetic in the how do you say the word? The historic Korean dynasties, shall we say, they have these crazy hats called gats, which are wild, these sort of see-through buckram things, and then the men would wear these, not unlike what I'm currently wearing. They would wear these sort of closed things and then these hats over it, and then they had like long traily bead things, but the silhouette is this like 8-line silhouette, and it looks not unlike sort of, I don't know, 1840s, but without the huge sleeves. But the idea was you got, and the women would wear what looks like skirts with waistbands right here, and so that they just go whoop. And I was like, well, there's a culture that mostly has small breasts.
That's true.
But
That's true.
okay.
That would not work for me, to be
boy,
honest.
I would look not as A, more like an H. Anyway, all of this is to say that there are some wild fashions in other parts of the world as well. But if you look at our own history, there are wild fashions all over. I mean, some of the ancient Egyptian fashions quite wild, right? Viking fashions, yeah, all over the place. So it's good times. I love historical fashion stuff.
Well, clearly it's a favorite for me, and we definitely got like good reactions from our wonderful community here who are in the conversation.
One of my dearest friends and I have a thing we call stupid sleeves. And I have to say, we are forever, whenever we are thrifting, whenever we are looking at the runways, whenever we're out, whenever we're doing some street fashion stuff, we're like, oh, a stupid sleeve has materialized. And it is the most exciting thing. We love a stupid sleeve. All praise a stupid sleeve. That's all I just wanted to add.
No, I know I've been monopolizing a little bit, so I should hand it off to the Grand Arbiter.
You're not monopolizing. I am making space.
I love fashion as an object of storytelling and also of culture. And, it often is, I mean, very much this, fabric it does not have a lot of longevity. So lots of fashion items disappear more quickly in the archaeological record. So I am always...
That vanishes from our archaeological record faster than you'd think.
Fashion. Oh.
No, I meant our personal costumes. Because we wear them so much.
We do. We wear them often. We wear them to bits. It's true. In fact, like some things, I'm sort of bound and determined that I will wear it until it falls apart, like the dragon costume. Poor Grand Arbiter. I am going to make us wear that until we can't stand to look at it. I love it so much.
That brings us around to an interesting aspect of this, which is the objects that we treasure, because we have imbued them with so much meaning. And I'm thinking about perhaps like personal objects that you've inherited from family, but also things you have made yourselves, or yeah, I mean, those are also kind of prevalent objects that tell you a lot about a person.
Yes. Well, and Grand Arbiter, you were going to say something. I heard.
We're getting a little echo from your side.
I'm having a terrible time with my sound, so that's probably why.
Well, I'm hearing an echo on my sound and on the Grand Arbiter, but not on Madame Askew.
Not on me.
Oh, it's from Madame Askew's account, but not. It's the sound is coming from her end, but she's not echoing.
Oh, I see. So Madame Askew, you need ear thingies.
We'll talk about it later. It's usually not a problem. It's this setup is a little bit difficult due to emergency nature.
Are you getting an echo now?
A little bit, yes. But we will handle it in a minute. So we don't look like we're having it anymore. It looks like we're good. Double check. I think we're good. So we do have I do think that this is actually an interesting segue. The nature of technology, particularly modern technology, as part of objects is an interesting, like the way in which people interact with objects as they move towards the future is a very interesting part of this conversation of architecture, archaeology, and objects, because there is this sort of like Luddite behavior that we can see in our current experience and in storytelling, and how we utilize that storytelling as like characters who reject or resist future developments or technology really tell a story about what they care about, which I think is really a fascinating component. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say it's also something that has to deeply concern those of us who, when we do write set in the current day. Because you have to think seriously about what objects you include in your fiction and what you call them. Because it could conceivably immediately date said fiction. For example, if you wrote something with an iPod in it, right? Like that is a major that suddenly makes it a period piece. And we can be currently writing with something that will make our book a period piece like too quickly going forward. So it is something that contemporary writers have to think about quite a bit.
Particularly now with how fast, like you can even tell how old a movie is just based on like what model of cell phone they just happen to have. Like our current modern phones, these look like this, but like this is actually a very specific phone with a specific timetable of which it exists. And even like we've lost a little bit of our ability to like have non-period pieces to a certain extent. We can have like we can't have like temporal. The existence of cell phones has made time agnostic film and television very difficult in a very interesting way, where it's like you can't really have something that's like it certainly is between X year and Y year because otherwise someone would have a cell phone to call the cops, right?
Right. Yeah, but also, I mean, this is scooping it right back around to where we started, but the cell phone that you have now says a lot about who you are to the world. Your choice of the brand of that cell phone, the version of it, how new it is, how old it is, whatever. All of that says a lot about your socioeconomic status, obviously, but it also says a lot about your political allegiances and a whole lot of other things. My favorite thing to do when I was teaching Intro to Archaeology was to go up on the board and write a series of car models down. And I would do Volkswagen bus, 1970s Volkswagen bus, a Japanese high-speed motorcycle, a Corvette, a red Mustang, and then a sedan, Honda Civic or something. And I would go to my students and I'd be like, guess which one of these I have? And what would it say about me if I had that? But also, what assumptions are you going to make about me when I tell you which one I actually do have? Yes. Of course, the joke's on them. I've owned all of those cars, right? But all of those vehicles. Or I mean, not in reality. I've never owned a Mustang, but see how quickly I have to backtrack that because I do not want to be the kind of person who would own a red Mustang, right? Like the thing, and we think we're being very logical about our choices most of the time about such things as a vehicle or a phone or whatever. But actually, that one object is an incredible instrument of messaging in our current social structure and society. And so too is one of Ivy's hats.
Yes. I mean, I thought that this was a really juicy topic, and I'm so thrilled with talking about it. And it's because of this portion that it's very easy as a modern person to just assume that your objects are like, oh, you went to Consumer Reports, you went looking for the most efficient or whatever object. I mean, that in itself tells you something about the person, the kind of person they are, that they would approach objects in that way. There's always like a story and an emotional component and like details that go with everything. And whilst you were an archaeologist dealing with physical objects, I was dealing with language, and like comparative linguistics is sort of like unto archaeology as to language, and so digging through the way in which words change, and that too is often as much wrought with emotionalism as anything.
Yes.
But I had to take a lot of archaeology classes. It was not a hardship, it was a pleasure. And I was obsessed with the stories that were not being told about the objects. Because of when I was studying, there was a very narrow, sort of myopic approach to objects. And, let's say that a lot of people were kind of erased in that particular approach. And so I'm curious. I'm like dancing around the topic, everyone, but I'm curious, as an archaeologist, what was an object that you just like had an obsession with the story of this piece, and who used it and why they used it, and it like really captured your imagination?
In that I encountered in my job, you mean, like an actual a thing? Because I mean, because there were quite a number of them. So I worked in the field of various different parts of the world, and I worked mostly with ceramics, and oh well, almost exclusively with. I mean, there were other things that came across my radar when I was doing field work, but that was very early on in my career. So, and I'm a ceramicist; that was my specialty. And more than once, I encountered very exciting pieces of ceramic. But it's almost always the kind of thing that an archaeologist is like, this is thrilling. And I'll tell a funny story of one of these. So when I was first in the field in Peru, that was during the heyday of the Battlestar Galactica, like the first remake, the one that was just, you know, causing waves, right? And the Cylons, I'm sorry, it's been a really long time. I think like the Cylons, right? The bad guys, when they're in their ship form, they have that red light that goes back and forth, and back and forth, back and forth, right? And I used to listen to a podcast specifically about Battlestar Galactica that was just a bunch of geeks talking about it. It diverged. It was called Galactica Actual, I think. And so I was listening to this, and I'm excavating. I'm in the highlands of Peru, and I am on, and they, for some reason, which I'm never gonna, I don't remember at all, because it was just this like microcosmic incident, got onto the subject of llamas. I'm working on Incan stuff, a lot of llamas. They use a lot of llamas in their decoration. And so I am listening to Battlestar Galactica.
Llama.
They're talking about llamas, and then they got on to the idea of like Cylon llamas. And I am literally brushing this little offering bowl that I'm looking at, and it has little black llamas with red eyes all around the rim. And I was like, whoa, object zeitgeist. I don't know what's anyway. So that's one of my favorite like random archaeology moments. I will never forget that little offering plate. I mean, I've seen thousands of them, but that one with the llamas with red eyes, the little Cylon llamas. Yeah, wild times. So that's one. Same, more like germane to this kind of conversation is one of the reasons I was at this site at all was because it was a long form Spanish occupation site. One of the things that the Inca did when the conquistadors came in and imposed Catholicism upon them is they simply shrunk their ritualistic artifacts. So you would have these large offering plates, and then all of a sudden they became tiny offering plates with little llamas on them. And the conquistadors et al. Thought, oh, how cute, they're little toys. And of course, it was just like literally you could still practice all of your Quechuan rituals and your shamanistic traditions, but you just did it tiny and in secret, which I think is such a like hilarious response to like what a fantastic thing. Like we'll just shrink it and still do it. Just in private, just in small form. So you get this reactionary tradition of these very tiny little pots that look exactly like the bigger ones we had 50 years prior that were obviously for like offerings to the gods, etc. And so they're just doing it just smaller. They shrunk all of their shamanistic traditions to the point that now when you have like despedidos or parties or ritual openings of a site or closings of a site, which most sites in Peru you call in a Quechuan shaman, they use teeny tiny objects. And I might suggest that this is a carryover. Like instead of offering large portions of food, they do little, like instead of broccoli, it'll be a little tiny plastic broccoli that is offered to the local gods. And I do often wonder if that's a carryover from this. But that's a different aside. I was there because we're looking at the ceramic traditions based on kilns or lack of kilns. That's where my particular PhD thesis was that I was working on. And what we're interested in is whether the conquistadors, when they came in, told them to do the pottery that they wanted them to make. So they were like, here, this is Spanish pottery. You're supposed to be imitating it now because that's what we want. We want the pottery that we're used to. whether they instructed them to do that and also taught them the kiln technology to do that, or whether they told them to make the pots and then use their local firing traditions, which were still open firing traditions, so no kilns. My argument was the latter. My boss's argument was the former. The only way to solve this argument is to find a period kiln of the Spanish type at a Quechuan Inca site, and this never happened, at least not while I was working in the area. So the debate remains open. But what we did find, which was very exciting, was this massive bucket-shaped vessel, and we had two of them, one of which we put together and one of which we left in situ and remains in pieces. But we wanted to see what it would look like, so a vessel this big. And it turned out that the vessel that big looked like a Spanish bucket, but it had indicative like sort of handles that were quite Inca. This is the type of vessel that if you are living in a culture that does not transport with wheels, and the Inca mostly transported with llamas and alpacas, so they use pack animals. So you need pottery that can be held and draped over the sides of creatures. You don't need pottery that can sit in the back of a wagon. So you don't need flat-bottomed vessels as a general rule. So this pot looked exactly like somebody who didn't quite know what a pot from Spain should look like, but it was made entirely in the Inca style. It was sort of so it was clearly made to hold Spanish goods, not local goods, because the Inca would not need that shape for anything that they consumed in daily life. So yes, that was a very long story to get around to be saying.
No, it was an exciting story. We had a great time.
A really cool massive pot. Which like that there it is. That's one of my favorites. There's a picture of me in the field because I got to put this pot mostly together with a huge grin on my face, standing and looking into this pot. I mean, it's that big. I'm very excited about it because I knew, and I'm hoping my professor eventually wrote that paper, that this would change the perception of how ceramics were conceived of by the conquistadors and the locals. Very exciting plot.
That is an amazing story. I'm so glad you shared that with us. And this has been such a wonderful discussion for our Patrons Corner. Everyone, look, often when we do these Patrons Corner topics, they are incredibly silly, and we're very silly. And we go in a lot of wild directions. This has been such a juicy discussion about this particular topic, and I love it because, you know, we all share this background. We're all storytellers in different ways, and everyone who's with us in the chat is also like really invested in these kinds of things. So it's been just an absolute delight. And I know that the Grand Arbiter is very aware of our, you know,
no, I have things to say.
Right. So, hand it off, Arbiter.
You can catch this and other similar conversations at TusCon, where we'll be debating and discussing all sorts of things with Gail and myself and Madam Askew, where we will all be in one place together once more.
And we have to talk about outfits and whether we're going to coordinate them and all that sort of thing. A very important discussion.
We will have the email chain will begin.
What will we wear? That is the real question.
The most important thing. So be sure to get involved or get tickets to TusCon.
Come hang out.
Yes, and you should come out and join us. And know that the discount does end soon. So be sure that you get your tickets soon to avoid paying more.
Please go ahead, Grand Arbiter.
You go first. It's fine.
Yeah. So as far as TusCon goes, the hotel room block is still open. So if you are like, on a whim, I have decided to come. You were so charming. Gail is amazing. Why have I never come to this convention? There's still time. There's also a local fundraising effort this Sunday at Mod Pizza. Please stop into our Discord or visit the TusCon social media to get the direct details about that. It's completely gone out of my head, but I have done my job. I have told you it's happening, and more importantly, I I'm very excited about getting to sit down with both of you in the same room to talk about nonsense at TuskCon. We're going to have a wonderful time. Yeah.
Yay! And
Yes.
sometimes we might say something smart too. Anything's possible.
I mean, we are all smart people. Speaking of smartness, Gail, what other than TuskCon, what should people look forward to from you? You have a talk tomorrow.
Yes, I have my usual live tomorrow, where I talk about the book side of things. Tomorrow, we're talking about how an idea becomes a book. So that if you're interested in that side of storytelling, that's what ostensibly I'm going to be talking about. Then I always just take questions from everybody about what they're really interested in. And I am going to be in Denver, if anybody is a Denver local, for Mile High Con, which I think is the weekend before TeslaCon. So if that's closer to you, that's another option. A long-running, really fun convention where I have been before, but it's been about 10 years. So although I've been back to Denver, I've been back to this con. So I'm looking forward to that. And then I have a local event called Indie Author Book Fest, which is coming up as well. So pretty busy. And then I go to Thanksgiving, and then I fly away. So.
Now, we have not talked about this yet, my darling friend, and I promise that we will talk about it more after. But your book, one of your books, is our book club pick in November. So you can also get more Gail, or at least more of Gail's books, by joining us for book club in November.
Oh, which one did you pick for November?
You know, what a great
She's
question.
like, I have no idea. It's fair, you guys, because I have written like well over 30 books at this juncture. So one should not be, I barely remember them. It's like, did I write that?
Bill's not here to remind me what we picked of your book, your back catalogue of books. I'm
excited that you chose something, so that's a thrill.
No, that's last year. No, I don't remember your book. That's what you need to know. And if you come and join us in our Discord, if you hang out with us on social media, I always post in advance.
I have it.
You all know. Gail's book is
coming.
Oh, is that a good espionage?
Oh, excellent. Good. Thank you.
Throwback.
It is. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So if that is our show for today. Madam Askew, would you like to send us off with your illustrious tone?
Yes, I would. Everyone, as we say goodbye tonight to our wonderful guest of honor, the delightful Gail, please remember to treasure yourselves as we treasure you, to take very good care of yourselves, because you are irreplaceable. So that means wash your hands, get your vitamins and minerals, get those vaccines and boosters, trust science, and do something lovely for yourself. Like, I don't know, get one of Gail's books and read. Really good way.
If you haven't read Tinkered Star Song yet, you're a bad person. I'm going to tell you right now. You're a bad person. You make terrible life choices. No, if you don't, you should fix your life. Get Tinkered Star Song so you can be less homophobic and a better
honestly,
person.
I don't comfort read my own books, but recently I was looking at the Tinkered Star Song books and I was thinking I might actually just need to read those as if I were a reader, because I need something, and that they seem to offer what I might need.
I mean, I think they do, and we hope that we can find what we need in each other and each other's books. So we'll see you guys next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Cheers.